Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Legacy Football Podcast. My name is Alex, and I'm here today with the usual trio. We got Jordan, Aryan, and Jake. How we doing today, boys?
Doing well. Thanks, Kamish.
Feeling strong, Commish. Thanks for asking once again.
I tried to do Aryan's flex, but I think I pulled something, so I'll be the last time I do that.
You just got to get the traps more involved.
Well, today we're talking about the NFC East, or as
NFC
many people
East.
used to call it, the NFC Least. Let's see if we can find some studs and duds in a division that has the Cowboys, the Giants, the Commanders, and the Eagles. All right,
The Cliff Commanders. They're going to be a good team.
the Cliff Commanders. That's
Yeah.
a good one.
Yeah.
You spell the commander with a K too, like Mother Russia?
Ah, yes.
Are they related in any way to Chris Paul?
What?
You're gonna have to explain that one, Jordan.
Cliff?
Cliff Paul.
Oh,
thank
Cliff
you.
Paul.
Thank you,
Cliff
thank
Paul.
you, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, then
Yeah.
you pulled
Yeah.
that one back around. I was like, wait, what? How does Chris Paul get here?
Yeah.
That's great. That
Wait,
was
Chris
perfect,
Paul
bro.
Russian? What?
That was perfect. Any relation to the great and powerful Chris Paul?
Oh man. All right, Aryan, go ahead and start us off with your stud.
You want to talk about studs, man. You came to the right place, the NFC East. And the first player that I think about in this division should be the first player that we all think about when we think the word stud. That's spelt STUD, typically a capital S when you talk about a guy like this. All right. Malik Neighbors. Come on. Come on,
Let's go.
bro. We don't even need to go into numbers. We can go into the numbers to just tell you that he's got the production profile, but we don't even need to go there from a number standpoint. Just put on the film. Put on the film, watch the guy play, and all you see is electric, explosive play after play after play. Underneath, out from the slot, out of the backfield, out wide. I mean, this guy is literally utilized all over the field. He can do everything. But the best thing about him is that he doesn't do anything like anybody else. Everything Malik Neighbors does is his own style. So you can't teach people how to run a crosser route the way Malik Neighbors runs it. You can't teach people to run a post. Like, you can't teach people to double move that Malik, like, you can't stop on a dime like this guy can and then generate that type of momentum and have that low center of gravity, even still having a frame. Like, he's just built different. He's a super smooth athlete. And I mean, I don't think I'm going to have much pushback here from any of you because we've all had pretty extensive conversation about the guys. So, but yeah, that's my stud, bro. NFC East, give me Malik Neighbors.
Obviously, we could tell Aryan's pretty high on Malik Neighbors, considering he had a whole outfit change for this episode dedicated strictly to him.
Listen, we're the blue.
Looking like he's ready for a New York Digital Underground freaking battle, but that's a discussion for another day. But no, I mean, there's a lot to like there about Malik. I think where you're getting him out there value wise, obviously a rookie guy. So in our league, being able to take value and having a guy like that in a contract, I think there's a lot of upside with that. 2 straight years at LSU, 1,000+ yard seasons. There's not a true proven guy there in New York, so there's an opportunity for him to step in and be that guy right away.
He already is that guy. If you're watching camp, I'm sure a lot of us have seen what's going on.
Yeah, and with
good account to follow, if you guys are aware or not, I'm not sure, but 32 beat writers, they collect all of the individual beat writers from each camp and they put it all into one account, and you can follow them on socials, and it's awesome watching these training camps. And Malik Neighbors in particular, I'm sure we've all seen highlights, but that dude's just dominating every day.
Yeah,
every day.
And just following up on that, I think with, the loss of Darren Waller and, like I said, not having any true feature or skill guys there's a really good opportunity for him to establish himself as that guy in New York right away. Obviously, I think the big question mark is with Daniel Jones coming back off a big injury and his up and down start to his career. There's a lot of pressure going on to him in this year with the big contract that he got a couple years ago. So a lot of that is going to be centered around Malik Neighbors' success. So, I mean, that's the biggest question mark I have. I don't have any worries about whether or not Malik could be successful based off his talent. But with the receiver position, as we've talked about, so much else has to go right in order for you to be successful. And it starts with the quarterback. And also, lastly, that offensive line too. That's been a big point for there for a couple years, and so need to see some improvements there for me to be completely sold. But I do love Malik Neighbors and his value.
Bro, Malik is so good. It don't even matter if Tommy Salami ends up playing because he's gonna dominate regardless, dude. He's gonna dominate regardless. He's quarterback proof already. Already.
Yeah. He's definitely the
There's-
most talented receiver they've had since OBJ. And that's
Yeah,
not even close.
I would say he's more talented than Odell.
Wow, really?
I would
Wow.
say
I mean, they're
that.
different. They're different
Yeah.
players for sure.
I would say he's more
Malik
talented than Odell Beckham.
Malik
be.
is such a run after catch machine that it doesn't really matter who his quarterback is, and I think that's why he's quarterback proof. Because if he can take a 7-yard slant 30, that's easily in the realm of possibilities on any play.
Yeah.
So
But he's
I
not
definitely
just
think-
a run after catch guy, which is what makes
no,
him
no,
great.
no.
You know what I mean?
He's a good route
Mhm.
runner, but
Yeah.
his name to fame kind of thing, it makes him QB proof in that regard.
He's such a good deep threat too. He's a chain mover, bro. He's tough over the middle. He's got great hands. He's sick with it on the sideline, bro.
Sounds like a
This
perfect
dude's-
receiver for San Francisco.
Bro, sounds like the perfect receiver for any team.
Yeah.
Like he could literally, he's like Tyreek Hill meets an outside receiver's build. You know what I mean? It's like as far as you can stretch Tyreek Hill athletically before he can't change on a dime anymore, and you get Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors is ridiculous.
Nice.
I mean, Malik Neighbors is on the smaller side. I think that's his only downside.
He's 6 foot.
Yeah,
No, I
about-
would.
about
You're
6
saying
foot.
as an you're saying as an outside guy though.
Yeah,
Typically
but
outside
yeah,
guys are
I'm just-
6'2", 6'3". So I
but
don't
I'm-
think he has the build of an outside guy, but he can play outside. I'm not saying
Yeah.
he can't, but he's just not as big as some of the outside guys are.
Right. Yeah.
He's got that.
He's
He's
such
got
a
that
dog.
Debo.
He's
He's
such
got
a
that Debo body type.
Yeah, he doesn't win off size. He wins off just being a way better athlete than whoever's in front of him.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yep.
that's something that's going to continue.
Yeah. Hey, that might be one of the first consensus studs that we've had in a while,
And
especially in
I'm sorry,
round 5.
I can't see the
Oh
graphic
yeah,
right now.
round
but
5. Yeah.
What is his IDP?
His IDP.
Or pardon me, his ADP.
his IDP is
His-
D
his-
lineman 3.
He will get a couple tackles.
He's individual defensive player number.
Yeah. No, his ADP is 55. So going
55.
middle to end of round 5.
Yeah, stop it.
I mean, you can't see too much statistical output this year. Like, I don't see him going over 1,100, 1,200 yards. Like, I don't see some crazy season, but I see him around 1,000 yards,
He'll get a ton of
6 to
catches.
7 touchdowns. Would be my guess for his rookie year, just because of the
Yeah.
quarterback situation. But moving
Yeah.
forward, I see him perennial 1,500 yard double-digit touchdown
Yeah,
playmaker.
He could easily have 80 catches, 90 catches. I have no doubt about
Yeah.
that.
yeah. To add to that, I think when you're getting a guy like Malik, you're looking at it for what the potential is, potentially 2 to 3 years down the road. I think when you look at the situation that we've talked about right now, I think there's a lot of opportunity for him to get touches. I think the big thing is obviously with our fantasy value is, how much he's going to be able to get into the end zone. Once you start getting closer to the red area, what that's going to look like, especially with that offense and how much they're actually going to get there, depending on how successful the team is. But I think looking at Malik from that rookie value and where his potential is 2 to 3 years down the line, I think there is a lot to like there.
He's that guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Stud.
Well, yeah, easy check.
Bonafide.
Let's hear your take on Jalen Hurts, because this one might not be such an easy check.
Oh
Jalen Hurts is
man.
garbage. I agree.
Well, Jalen Hurts, I love the player. I like Jalen Hurts' story. I followed those few years of college football that he was playing pretty closely, and what happened in the national championship game, and him having the humility to still be supportive. I mean, of course you're gonna be supportive as your teammate, but you get pulled at halftime in the national championship after doing all that work, and he kept his head held high and gained a lot of respect in my eyes, and then
He's a high
obviously
character guy.
very high character guy, and obviously has a lot of athleticism and rushing ability, and he's just a playmaker, so his success in the NFL is no surprise. But when we're talking about duds, for me, it's from a fantasy football draft standpoint, right? So there's just so many other good quarterbacks that you got to really take into consideration all of the specifics of the scheme change, the players around him, and just his situation as a whole, and really consider, is he going to get that 15 to 19 rushing touchdown number? Is he gonna have some crazy ridiculous rushing stats again? Because if he he doesn't have that, I don't necessarily think he's the type of player that's going to carry you with volume through the air, you know.
Mhm.
So he's pretty reliant on those really short yardage rushing touchdowns from a high end fantasy value standpoint. So I don't call him a dud like he's not going to be a good player, but I just don't necessarily see him replicating the same level of rushing output that he's done in the past with the addition of Saquon Barkley and the departure of Jason Kelsey. I mean, those two things right there is like a double whammy for this guy's red zone production.
Yeah, you bring up some really good points there, Aryan. When you look at Jalen Hurts from a fantasy value perspective from the quarterback position, I think it's probably unlike something you've seen for probably since Cam Newton as far as touchdown production. He's had double-digit touchdowns the past 3 years. He had 15 touchdowns last year, 13 the year before that, 10. I mean, second year in the NFL. That is running back one
Yeah, that's crazy.
touchdown
Yeah.
production from the quarterback position. Now, to add to your point, which I will also agree with, I think last year, Philadelphia and Jalen specifically got exposed a little bit for what his passing abilities are. One of the things that was a big stat for Jalen going into last year is he really struggled versus zero coverage and zero pressure, and he was one of the worst at it in the league. And one of the reasons why Tampa Bay was able to beat them and have success was their ability to be able to go so much cover zero pressure and play so much man coverage. And as we know, the NFL is a copycat league. And until he can fix that or figure that out, teams are going to continue to attack that. And last year's relative of the production, last year, 23 touchdowns, 15 picks. That's a big jump from the year before where he had 22 touchdowns and 6 picks. So I don't ever think he's going to be a high-end fantasy value from a passing production perspective. It's going to be his ability to be able to rush. And the thing is as much as I hate the tush push, until somebody stops
It was
it on
automatic.
until somebody stops it on a consistent basis, they're going to continue to do it. So for me, that is what you have to hold on to or bank with him if you're going to continue to value him from a fantasy perspective. Because to me, I do think what he did passing the ball this past year is more of what you'll see from Jalen moving forward and was more realistic. And like I said, until he makes some of his changes as far as his ability to be able to have success from zero coverage and those things that have been talked about, his value is going to be from a rushing perspective. And damn, I don't know how long you can keep up those numbers of 15 and 13 and type and elite numbers.
So let me ask you guys, or I'll ask this in a sec because I want to kind of give my potential stud case for him because I don't disagree with any of the rushing part of the argument. Losing Jason Kelsey is going to be huge for them, and Jalen Hurts got hurt down the stretch. I think it was a shoulder, if I'm not mistaken, and a lot of their season is going to rely on him being healthy.
Yeah.
So having Saquon as a true downhill type of runner compared to having DeAndre Swift, who has been injury prone himself, I think they're going to take, even if Jason Kelsey's departure isn't a big deal for the tush push, I think they're going to take a lot of those, first and goal at the one opportunities off of his plate to begin with. I also think Kellen Moore on the stud side of it, I think Kellen Moore offers him a little bit better of a situation from a coordinator perspective.
Yeah.
Because if you looked at when he had Shane Steichen, the guy had the ability to push the ball down the field and make those big plays to AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. He still has two of the best receivers in the league, and you can argue that he has the best two outside of whatever handful of guys you want to select.
Yeah,
McConkey, QJ.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking more on the scale like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek, something like that. But tomato, yeah.
Malik Neighbors, Wandell.
But anyways, I think maybe Kellen Moore helps unlock that the same way that Shane Steichen did. So I could see him having more production through the air and losing the rushing touchdown upside. So I could see it both ways on that.
Yeah.
But then I have a question for you. So Aryan, in the very beginning, you had made the comment that you think there's a lot of other quarterbacks that you could get that you like just about as much. Is it more about a quarterback situation with you not wanting to, or you saying that he's a dud because you don't want to pay that ADP for a quarterback? or is it just specifically him?
I just think that his numbers, I think he will regress. I don't see progress in his numbers, and I think that he's not like the draft is not reflecting that. You know, he's still being drafted as if he's going to be producing. Like, I'm sorry, what was his ADP? You said 51?
32.
32. Okay, so
Yeah,
that's
he's going
incredibly
mid-round 3.
Three
incredibly
overall
rich
right now.
Yeah, incredibly rich
Yeah.
for my taste at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
I understand what people are chasing with that rushing production, but I see it taking a step back. So you're paying QB3 price. He'll probably end up more in the QB 8 to 12 range when when the dust settles this year, in my opinion.
Would you pay QB3 price for any of your top QBs?
QB, yeah, for sure, especially in dynasty format, absolutely. But even in redraft, like I've taken Josh Allen, at or even right before that in some situations, depending on who's gone and what the format is. But yeah, Josh Allen in particular for me would be a guy because the rushing's not going to step back. He's going to have to throw the ball even more. So I just see him producing, more numbers. That's just my personal opinion of him. But yeah, pretty much just Josh Allen would be the only guy I'm comfortable taking in the first 3 rounds with my draft strategy.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, makes sense to me.
Yep.
All right. Let's move on to Jake's studs and duds list. We're going to go with maybe one of the best rivalries in football right now. A Cowboys receiver, CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb, yeah. A lot of people view him as the 1-1 guy, all wide receivers in the NFL, and I agree with it. He has no real threat to his target share, like at all. The Cowboys didn't add anyone to take away from him. He had 181 targets last year, 135 receptions, almost 1,800 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 years in the league, 3-time Pro Bowler. Like I said, the Cowboys outside of CeeDee Lamb are not that exciting of a team, so I see his targets maybe even going up this year than down. So I think to take him as the number 1 wide receiver for your guy on the year, I think it's a very safe pick, and I think he'll continue to do what he's doing. For the sheer fact of it's him and only him. That's it.
He's him.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to really argue against this dude. I mean, obviously, he's been a breakthrough player the past couple years. He's the absolute definition of a stud. He's done a lot to elevate the Cowboys and their offense with his production over the past couple years, as we've spoke about. I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. The other thing that we know with these guys in professional sports too, CeeDee Lamb wants a contract right now and he wants to get paid, and there's no better way to show it than to continue to do what you do on the field. So he's going to have another opportunity to do that this year in an offense that is having to replace Pollard, and a couple other guys, bringing in an older Zeke. The offensive line's getting a little bit older. They did draft offensive line in the draft to try to shape that up a little bit. But yeah, with the lack of other guys there and a consistent number 2, number 3 receiver, you can't see it changing anytime soon. And like I said, CeeDee Lamb is a dude.
Yeah. He's a dog.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Cooks is the biggest threat to his targets. I mean, Jake Ferguson, I think, is going to take a step forward. He's a good tight end. But you got Jalen Tolbert still there, right? I think he would be the other.
There's no real threat to.
No, and he
Tolbert's
just
gotten good. Yeah, Tolbert's gotten good press so far, throughout the offseason. But he's not a legitimate threat. And they were still the best offense in the league last year. That would be the only opportunity for regression, I would say. If anything is going to impact CeeDee Lamb's ceiling, it's obviously how well the offense plays as a whole. But I don't think his talent is questioned whatsoever. And
the only way you can
devalue
the only way you can devalue a CD is to get an MP3. Oh, that was so bad. Go ahead.
I know this is. I know we're not here talking about this guy, but we brought up Brandon Cooks. Crazy thing about Brandon Cooks, talking about another super underrated receiver. Guys had 6 1,000-yard seasons in the NFL. And kind of fun fact, I actually played against him when we were at Del Campo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Brandon Cooks.
Damn.
I had no idea you were that old.
All right, Jake. Well, speaking of age, we'll go in the opposite direction. Let's talk about your rookie QB.
Yeah, Jayden Daniels. Yeah, a lot of people are high on him. I really don't know why. But here we are. he's a rookie QB, right? So he's a 5-year college quarterback. Not many 5-year guys come out and tear up the league right away, if ever. I think there's a select few, but I think he was a 5-year guy for a reason. He needed those 5 years to get where he's at. He's not going to be able to run like he did in college at all. The NFL's a different speed, different size. They hit a lot harder. His body's not going to withstand all those hits if he tries to run like he did in college. He's he's a rookie. You know how I feel about rookies. They're unproven, so they could be the next great or they could be the next bust. That's what we don't know, right? He has a less than favorable supporting cast around him. Jayden Daniels does, and probably the worst offensive line in the NFL. I'm not impressed with the Washington Commanders at all. I think they're a garbage team, and I think the trend will continue.
Alex, do you want to go or do you want me to wait?
Well, I just want to say one thing about the supporting cast.
Jayden Daniels is going as a top 15 guy this year, if I'm not mistaken, in the quarterback position, and I think that's if you guys want to draft him that high, all means go ahead and do so, but you'll regret it like most people will.
I think you'll regret. I think regret saying this one day. We're gonna look back at this podcast and be like, you know what, Jayden Daniels balled out.
I saw Alex's face when Jake said supporting cast. I was like,
yeah,
you guys just
you got
step back and give him.
You're talking
Terry
Commanders here.
McLaurin. You got Terry McLaurin, who's a legit
oh man, Jake was right, like he always is too.
Always so right about stuff. I don't know why I don't just listen.
Like every time he speaks, it's facts. But whatever.
Go ahead, Alex.
We'll see. I mean, you talk about a supporting cast. I don't want to talk too much about Terry McLaurin right now because we'll get to him in a sec.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a bona fide wide receiver one. You really like Brian Thomas or Brian.
Brian Thomas.
You like Brian Robinson. You like Brian Robinson.
He's serviceable. He's serviceable.
Austin Eckler is still a quality player. You know, you can say whatever you want about the receiving core with Jahan Dotson, but they got Luke McCaffrey.
Stud.
I mean, hey, you traded for him last year, so don't. I
traded for him, and then in turn, I traded him for Jalen Warren, which is the steal of the deal.
Ultimate move.
Yeah, I'm just saying he has a lot better of a receiving core and weapons around him than people want to give him credit for. They have one of the worst offensive lines. I'm not going to argue that front, but I think that he has a lot more upside with his weapons around him than you probably acknowledge.
Yeah.
And a lot more than you probably acknowledge.
Just to follow up on that, Alex, I think with the Jayden Daniels thing, I do get concerned, especially with rookie unproven guys. Jake had mentioned this, but, I do think that sometimes we kind of court guys too early before they've proven themselves. And I think we're doing that a little too early with Jayden Daniels and Anthony Richardson even. He's got a super high value in a limited time production. Not that I don't think that those guys are going to be there eventually, but it's like, let's let them get there first before we do that. Mm-hmm. So, but at the same time, with where his value's at, if you're a guy right now who doesn't have a quarterback, I love where his value's at because he is also in a division where there is potentially some upside there for the taking. And in my opinion, I do agree with Alex. I think when you look at Washington, I think their supporting cast defensively and offensively is a lot better than people think. They have one of the best front sevens. Their D-line is really, really good. They've got a couple guys there on the backside too that they're, excited about. And like I said, some of the skill guys, Robinson, Eckler, McLaurin, there is potential there for him. But, as far as the running stuff, I don't think he's going to be able to do the design run stuff. There were some hits that he took in college, like against Ole Miss and some teams.
Bro, every hit looks like a cartoon hit. Like he takes
so
the
bad.
weirdest hits.
Why does he do it like that?
He's not going to be able to take. He's not going to be able to take too many of those viral meme hits in the NFL. Like that.
Yeah, he has to learn that now. That can't be a lesson he
really
goes
quick.
out and physically learns.
I'm gonna be honest. The biggest question that I have for Washington, I have a lot of faith. I actually think Dan Quinn's a better coach than people think, and I actually thought he was successful with his time as a head coach in Atlanta. I think some stuff went there that went hayward quick, but I'm really concerned to see what Cliff Kingsbury is going to do with the offense as the OC. I personally think the book's still a little bit out, even with as much success as he's had as a player and in college. I personally think the book's still out a little bit his success as an OC at that level. So that's what I'm really curious to see is how are they going to marry some of the stuff that they tried to do maybe with Kyler Murray, and was Kingsbury able to learn from that stuff, and is he able to take that with Washington and kind of take the good with the bad with that and allow Jayden to be able to be successful there? Because I do think there's some tools there, but offensive line and other stuff that we talked about,
I mean,
that stuff needs to change in order for him to be where we expect him to be.
to put
Well,
a
one thing. Go ahead,
so
Jake.
just
Go.
to put a rookie quarterback behind one of the worst, probably the worst offensive line in the NFL, and say, "Hey, go out there and run the ball and make things happen." That's not a recipe for success.
But at least he's mobile
It's
to
not.
escape
It's
having the
not
worst
though.
offensive line.
It's
It's
not.
no. It's not a
It's not.
recipe for success.
You have to
Never
scheme
has
it
been.
that
Never
way.
will be.
You have to scheme it that way. But the one thing I will say in their favor in that regard is that one thing we know for sure about Cliff Kingsbury is that he has one of the fastest pace of play in the NFL. When
Mhm.
he's calling plays, they're going to be getting on that ball. It's going to be a very high volume offense. So when you don't have a super sturdy offensive line that you can ask time for, you can make up for that by having a very well conditioned offensive line and running high volume and spreading things out and opening up the field for the. So I think that's schematically that's what I see the Cliff Commanders being.
Yeah. All right. I think that's about as much as we're gonna get on Jayden for right now. I'm sure he'll get brought back up when we talk about Terry in a little bit. But let's move over to Jordan and his stud and dud. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so starting off with the stud, I'm going to go with the guy who had a little bit of what I thought was a breakthrough season in his role in Dallas last year, and I think that's their tight end, Jake Ferguson. You look at his ADP value right now. His ADP value from the tight end spot is number 9. Overall, it's there in the mid 70s. So I think if you look at his value based off his production and his age, one of the things that we talked about is there's been a glaring hole there in the Cowboys for the past couple of years for there to be a consistent number 2 or number 3 guy to take that pressure off of CeeDee Lamb, or even before in prior years when they had the Des Bryant, Jason Witten deal. There hasn't been that true number 2 guy there. And I think Ferguson last year was able to show in flashes that he could be that second guy and a security blanket. He's only been in the league for 2 years, 2022, 19 catches, 174 yards. Last year, when he gets the opportunity to start 16 games, 71 catches, 761 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
Doesn't he have some like royal lineage too?
I'm not sure on that. His grandpa, I do know that his grandpa is the famous head coach and athletic director from Wisconsin, Barry
There
Alvarez.
you go. Yep, Barry Alvarez.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about him overall, I mean, super big jump last year from his first year. Noticeable connection there between him and Dak. They had a lot of success last year. I only expect there to be more success there from that position. Like I said, kind of solidified himself as a back end top 10, top 15-ish tight end. And I think he's got the ability to kind of solidify that and even get better. Like I said, when I watched him play, I was pretty impressive. You could tell that Dak was trying to get him involved, and he slowly was turning into that security blanket for Dak, vice to CeeDee Lamb. So I expect that trend to continue going into this season.
He's a very domineering player. He just really gets out there and just asserts his will. He's aggressive. He gets up in the face of defenders. I like his attitude. He's a
That's
tough
what he
kid.
expects from a Wisconsin tight end.
Well, I say
He's a Badger.
Well, Ferguson had 71 receptions, 700 yards, 5 touchdowns last year. And you look at someone like Trey McBride, who a lot of people are saying is probably going to be a top 2, top 3 guy this year.
Right.
McBride last year, 80 receptions, 800 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So, Ferguson's not that far off.
Yeah, wow, good point.
And he's not being talked about like McBride is at all.
Yes.
So,
And not only that,
I
but
agree.
Ferguson did the majority of his damage in the last 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
He really picked it up. He had a couple good games in the middle of the season, but you look at, I guess it was that playoff game, that 32.3 point game, the Green Bay game, where he just showed up. He had multiple touchdowns, 10 catches on 12 targets, 3 touchdowns, 93 yards.
Yeah,
Balled out.
Trey McBride is a great comparison. I have him in obviously one of our other divisions.
Mhm.
Those two guys both came onto the season late last year.
They did, yep.
As their teams went through injury issues, those guys both became security blankets for their quarterbacks. And like I said, I don't know if it's just one of those things because more people, because there's more Travis Kelce skill type players at the tight end position that you can line up and put out there that can create a different dynamic to where safeties can't cover them and linebackers can't. You know, when you can get these guys out in space and create these unique situations and matchups, like I said, McBride and Ferguson were two examples of two guys who really came on late at the end of the season last year. And I think that trend is going to continue for both of those guys, where there's not legit two or three guys ahead of them. You know, to me, it's the number one guys there in CD and Marvin Harrison, and a really good opportunity for them to step in and be that.
Yeah, no, I think
Agreed.
if you're waiting on a tight end late too, I think he's excellent value.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not going to get one of the top 3 or 4 guys, you know, that next rung of tight end quality, I think he's near the top or at least in the, you know, the upper middle of that. And you can get him extremely late in drafts. All right, well, let's talk about a running back, the one that replaced Saquon. Funny enough, we don't even have Saquon on this list, even though he stayed inside the division. But let's go ahead and talk about Devin Singletary.
Yeah, I almost went with him. Or funny, you were talking about Barkley. I almost went with Barkley as a potential stud because I do see that potential with him in Philadelphia. But Devin Singletary, otherwise known as Mouse on Hard Knocks, Motor Mouse, he the thing that I get concerned about with him in New York is once again situation. If Saquon Barkley, who I feel is a top 5 running back, if he couldn't have success in New York with the problems that they had there, to me, getting a mid-value replacement and a guy like him it doesn't really change the dynamic for me. You know, I don't see that the offensive line, even though they did spend a lot of money through the offensive line through free agency, so you expect that position to get better. Once again, I think Singletary's value is going to be dependent on the success of Daniel Jones, the offensive line, and Brian Daboll's ability to be able to call plays. Devin Singletary's never had over 1,000-yard season since he's been in the NFL. His best season did come last year when he was in Houston. He did share, you know, some of that role in production, you know, through a little bit through committee, but he did have 216 carries last year. So he has had some tread. He has had some opportunities. I just kind of see him based off where his value is at from the running back position. If I go back and I look at it, he's right there around mid 30s, late 80s. To be honest, I even think that might be a little bit high for him. And once again, I just the big thing with New York for a while has been consistent quarterback play and the offensive line. And there's a reason why Saquon Barkley isn't there anymore. And they wasted a very, very talented player, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And a lot of that came to factors, once again, that was kind of outside of Saquon's control.
They won one playoff game with him at least.
Yeah, I mean, he did that too, basically. But to go along with your point, Jordan, their offensive line is ranked 32nd in the NFL for this upcoming season. And that's per Sharp Football Analysis, that's somebody I've been quoting a lot recently for these offensive line rankings. But yeah, so they're dead last.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex.
The only thing I would say that gives Devin Singletary a little bit of hope is that he could have a workhorse role, and he was good in Houston last year. At his ADP, I mean, he's going ahead of Brian Robinson by 9 spots, and I feel like that's pretty fair. Just because I know that they drafted not Will Shipley. Who was it that they drafted? Tyrone Tracy, I believe. But he's an explosive player at times, but I don't think he's really a threat to Devin Singletary right now. So even though they do have they project to have the worst offensive line, I think a volume play at round 8, he's going 92nd overall. I don't think that's a terrible shot if you're going for just like a pure volume based back.
You know
there's
why
not a
I
whole
think,
lot of them in the league.
you know the reason why I probably think of the value like that, and you're probably right. You know, I'm probably selling it a little bit too much discourse for Singletary because it's not that bad. I think the way I look at it is because if you look at the players around him in that similar ADP range, there's a lot of rookie guys there with a similar number. And to me, if I'm going to take a rookie guy where I can have value in that contract that I can keep with another addition on the roster with a rookie contract, I think to me that has more value with being able to take a rookie guy there like a Benson who's with the Arizona Cardinals now, a Bucky Irving, a Jalen Wright. You know, I think if you can grab one of those guys there and be able to have whatever you have running back wise on the roster right now and be able to have the rookie, we know, especially in our league, how important it is at the end of the season because we have to make those, we have to make those tough roster moves, right? And so having that rookie, right? Is it a rookie or is it, kind of an average veteran? That rookie makes it an easier decision because then you can keep him.
Ain't no one keeping Devin Singletary on any roster.
Yeah, Commish,
Ain't
just
no
for the listeners' standpoint, can you kind of explain the legacy
With the
roster
contracts
breakdown
and
and how we
everything?
keep our rookies and vet players and whatnot?
Yeah, totally. So, little side note: the league that we play in, one of the league formats that we will have on Legacy Football when we launch in 2025, is called keeper contracts, and we treat it more like a dynasty league, but it's more of a keeper league, where you can go in and you can select from 6 different contract types. So we have offensive players, IDP for obviously defensive leagues that use IDPs. You have rookie contracts, which are players that you draft as rookies that you can keep for multiple years on a flexible contract. Then you have practice squad contracts, which are specifically reserved for first or second year players, regardless of if you drafted them or not. And there's 2 other ones. You have Superflex and Specialty, which Specialty is for head coach positions or kickers. So the way that we have our rosters is we have a 20-man roster, 2 IR, 2 practice squad, but you get to keep 13 total players depending on how they fit into your contracts. So a rookie is going to be more valuable in that player, in that league type, because you have the opportunity to be a little more flexible with how you construct your roster.
And it makes it fun. Like it's like we're building our rosters through the draft, and it incentivizes you to grow players on your own team. Like have that farm system essentially, which for me it's a really engaging aspect of the league.
Oh, I love it. I mean, I reach on rookies every year. I took Brees
I'm about to
Hall.
reach on a rookie this year.
Yeah.
Well,
I took Brees Hall his rookie year second round, like mid-second.
Big
When
win.
there were still quality guys like Saquon that went after, specifically for the fact that he had a rookie contract and Saquon didn't, because it just offers you so much more flexibility if they hit.
Yep.
Right. So, I think that was obviously a very tough decision to make at the time when you look at Saquon compared to a rookie Brees Hall, but I'm very thankful
difficult
that I pulled the trigger.
Relative athletic score on Brees Hall was through the roof, though, man.
Yeah.
He had a lot of things going for him. So
I was in a
bold
similar
move,
position.
but a good move.
I was in a similar position last year with receiver, and I have 2 guys, Micah Pittman and Devontae Smith, and they're guys who you would consider that kind of 10 to 15 range of receiver, and they're close enough to where you would keep them, but also enough to where you could put them back out there and potentially get value somewhere else later down the line. And to your point, those are the decisions that you're constantly having to make and think about, with the roster construction in our league format, which makes it super exciting.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I'm super excited to be able to share it with the whole fantasy community. I think obviously we offer a lot of things, and this isn't necessarily a podcast topic about all the features just yet. But just know that what we're developing is incredibly like customizable for whatever league type you want to be on. And the additions of things like Legacy Score and a new format called Keeper Contracts. You don't have to use the Keeper Contracts, but I would highly recommend trying at least one league with it and see how you like it. Because in my opinion, we treat it more like a dynasty league, but our draft is more interesting because we have guys like Devonta Smith available. We have guys like Michael Pittman available, like Jordan just said. But you still get the blend of the rookies and see Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors go 1-2 and then Rome go at 3. So, yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, man, because that was obviously a very good point too.
Best league format of all time. Best fantasy football. app development, website, everything. Like no joke, the way this is all coming together, I'm so excited to not have to deal with the other apps and other formats. You
Yep.
know, like obviously we're lucky enough to be behind the scenes and see the development process and see how it's coming together. So listeners can't get on the app yet, but when you do, trust me, you will be using this app
You
for
will.
your fantasy football
Yep.
services moving
Yeah,
forward.
we're
It's
also
just
we're
It'll
also
change
glad
everything.
we're also glad you ran away from the Bears division too, where the real competition's at.
yeah. I don't know about that. I was ready for a new challenge, bro.
Yeah.
I
Kamish,
don't like to bring up the past. We'll keep things in context.
Kamish, who's your studs and duds?
So, I think you guys probably could have guessed it by the way I was talking when we were talking about Jayden Daniels. But my stud is Terry McLaurin. I want to start out with this question. Terry McLaurin entered the league in 2019. Do you think Jayden Daniels is going to be the best quarterback he's played with?
Oh yeah.
In the not nine, since
Who's better?
2019.
Who's better, Jake? What was that head tilt for? Who's a better quarterback?
You got to take Carson Wentz, Sam Howell,
Sam Howell. Yeah.
Hey,
Taylor Heineke.
Taylor Heineke.
Hey, Sam Howell,
You were
freaking
just-
dude, though.
Sam Howell's a
Howell's
dude. Sam Howell's a
He
dude, bro. He's
So-
a dude.
Okay. So
Um,
with those quarterbacks that he's played with, his worst season statistically was his rookie year. He had 919 yards on 58 catches. He had 7 touchdowns that year, which has been his career high. But if you're telling me that he gets an upgrade at quarterback and he is still a consistent 1,000-yard receiver, his rookie year he had 919. Every other year he's been above 1,000. And he has a better quarterback who will probably get him more than the 5 touchdowns he averages per year. And he's being drafted in the 6th round. I think that is a massive steal for massive upgrade or upside for an offense that, to Aryan's point, is going to get the ball out quick, is going to run a ton of offensive plays, and give their receivers an option to really, be productive. You look at when I was just going to say, you look at when Cliff Kingsbury had DeAndre Hopkins and how much of a target hog he was. Terry McLaurin is the unquestioned wide receiver 1 on this team. And he's getting treated like he's a secondary flex option, whereas I think he could be a weekly, wide receiver 2 at minimum.
Yeah.
I
like this pick. I think this is a good choice here, Alex. You look at his ADP where he's valued at, and you look at, the thing is when I look at these things, I tend to look at some of the guys that are around the player too, in comparison to their team and usage and those types of things that we talked about. The guys that are around him right now, Christian Kirk, Chris Godwin, Hollywood Brown, Tank Dell, Malik Neighbors. If I put him up against those guys, I honestly take him over most of those guys, to be honest with you. So, and with him being a guy who is the true number 1 over there, and I think he's been underutilized at times. 4 out of the 5 seasons that he's been in the league, he's had over 1,000 yards. With all the quarterback bullshit that he's had to deal with, certain things, once again, we're talking about, and we've had this conversation with Carolina earlier, certain things with organizational stuff that has happened in Washington that we know about that has been so much outside of the players' control too. The one thing that's been constant there the past 4 or 5 years has been Terry McLaurin. And getting him where he's at value-wise, I think is a steal because so many people forget about him because of where he plays at in the market where he's at and just the success Washington has had overall over the past 4 to 5 years. So I think this is great value, and I think this is a great pick by the commissioner. I think, obviously depending on the success of Jayden Daniels in the O-line and what Cliff Kingsbury can do, obviously we know anytime they bring in a new coaching staff and fresh blood, there's a sense of rejuvenation. And so I could easily see that happening here. So I think that's a good pick.
From value standpoint, this is the best time to draft Terry McLaurin since he was a rookie. He's been ranked higher than he is this season in seasons past since his rookie.
Yeah, I think he's being slept on. Yeah,
he's being slept on for sure, and it
Definitely.
really it goes back to how you feel about the rookie quarterback. Some guys are gonna like Jayden Daniels, and I personally don't see how you don't like Jayden Daniels. If you watch the film on this dude, he's not just a rookie. he's a Heisman Trophy winning, like, college football record
with a
setting.
beautiful passing game.
Incredible. And, like, to Jake's point of earlier when he talked about him being, what was he, a 5-year college guy? 5-year, 6-year college guy?
5-year college guy, I think.
Yeah, he regressed. So he started out really impressive at Arizona State, and then they had a coaching change, and he did not play well. And then transfer portal, went to LSU, and obviously the rest is history from there. But, I mean, this guy, one of the most beautiful balls I've ever seen thrown. And then you talk about the athletic gifts. I mean, from a speed standpoint, second only to Lamar Jackson, running the football from just a pure speed running the football talent at the quarterback position. Jayden Daniels is up there with Lamar. He's got to get down and stay safe, but ultimately when it comes to Terry McLaurin's value, it's the best quarterback that Terry McLaurin's played with from a college resume standpoint, and it's not even close,
Yeah. So, okay. Jake, do you agree with Terry McLaurin?
Yeah, so I wouldn't call him a superstar by any means, but I
Mhm.
think he's a star on that team. So I don't think he's the Jamar Chases, Justin Jeffersons.
Yeah, no, he's
of the
not in
world.
that class.
Do you think Terry kind of falls in that, like what I talked about earlier? He kind of falls in that Devontae Smith, Pittman type range.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, 10 to 12.
Which is interesting, though, because he's the true number one option on that team, whereas the other guys are all kind of clear number twos. You look at Jalen Waddle, you look at T. Higgins, you look at Devonta Smith.
I think Pittman, you could probably make an argument for the number one. I think quarterback play has done him a disservice. I think Richardson could change that. He's another guy too. Obviously, not talking about him right now. He's had a couple 1K seasons and been productive more than what people have seen. And like I said, you find a lot of that here. And honestly, it's kind of easy to do that sometimes with the receiver position because there's so many of them, and
it's a deep position overall.
It's such a deep position and such a passing game now. And obviously, according to the experts, they feel that wide receiver is the easiest position to develop and transition from college to the NFL. So, I mean, it's easy to sit here and look and kind of forget about certain guys' success. I mean, shit, we brought up Brandon Cooks earlier. Dude's had 6 freaking 1K seasons in the NFL. I mean, that's
on different teams too.
Yeah, he's got almost 10,000 yards receiving. So it's like, I mean, that's impressive shit.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of non-impressive shit, no, I don't have that strong of an opinion on Brian Robinson. I actually think he's a quality player. The thing that I don't like about Brian Robinson is the fact that, one, they brought in Austin Eckler, and say what you will about Austin Eckler being that dude anymore. The one thing Austin Eckler does well, not one thing he does well, but the thing he does the most well is score touchdowns.
I'm sorry.
No, he's a touchdown machine, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where not all of, but the majority of his fantasy production comes in. So around the goal line, I can't imagine Brian Robinson is going to get that much work in the goal line area. He's not a better receiver than Austin Eckler, so he's really going to be just the early downs guy. And behind the worst offensive line in totality, I think that's going to be a tough position for him to be in. And two, I just don't like where he's getting drafted. If I'm looking at that range of players, I like guys like Devin Singletary more, for example. I do. I think Devin Singletary has a.
The commish just lost all his credibility right there alone.
Hey, I don't think so, man. I think Devin Singletary has a lead back potential, and volume alone can get you production. Like you guys tried to make me hear about Rachaad White. So I like him more. I like Jonathan Brooks more. I think a guy like Chase Brown right now, who is at a all-time low of a discount, I think Chase Brown's going to hit. And I would much rather take a guy like Chase Brown than Brian Robinson, who is. What do you got to say?
No, okay. I think Brian Robinson was in a similar. I think Brian Robinson was in a similar type of kind of situation in regards to he had to carry, or like Rachaad White in Tampa Bay. They didn't really have a stable running back situation there.
They used Rodriguez quite a bit, and Antonio Gibson was still getting work.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as I guess what I'm saying is Robinson.
I didn't say it was good work.
Robinson got more more production last year than people probably would have assumed, and it was probably because of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
It was because he got shot, and he came with that energy, bro. And
Oh,
nobody was gonna keep that man down.
Hey, Cheddar Bob, relax, bro.
Hey, nobody was keeping that man. He walked out to many men by 50 Cent, bro, after getting shot.
But no, I mean, I just think, I think when you look at his value, Austin Eckler, I do think he scores a lot. I think he's going to have value in Cliff Kingsbury offense as a gadget back in that offense. But I do think Robinson is going to be the majority of the meat and potatoes back in that offense, especially with how much zone RPO game that they do. Cliff Kingsbury, I think Robinson Jr. is going to be, a consistent part of that workload. I think when I look at the guys around him, Singletary, Benson, Spears from Tennessee, and Ezekiel Elliott, I do think there's a couple guys you could probably make a case for around here over Robinson. Eckler's kind of in that similar range ADP, but I think the thing is I don't see there being another guy who's going to take the majority of the workload away from Robinson. And Robinson's also younger too. And sometimes these offense coordinators like to take advantage of that and put miles on these younger guys. Even last year, Robinson, young guy, came in and they gave him a ton of tread.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see a similar type of situation happening again this year, especially with the new people they brought in.
Yeah. All right. Nothing else to add on Brian Robinson, guys?
And I'm pretty sure he was a top 15 running back last year, fantasy wise, and I think it will continue. He's a freaking dog.
He's a dog, bro.
He finished with 733 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, 368 receiving yards. So I don't think he finished top 15.
I'm pretty sure he's in the top 15. I could be wrong.
He was 26th.
I'm
sorry, 21st. 21st.
Okay.
Jake's never been wrong before, but he could be wrong.
Maybe it was just this one time.
Maybe he finished top 15 in one game.
I was 6 spots off. But still,
he had a few spike weeks though, like good spike weeks.
I do think, Alex, adding to your point, now that I double checked his numbers again, I do think the thing that you worry about is Robinson, because the necessity did add value out of the backfield last year as a receiving back. And
that work's going to Eckler, in my opinion.
That work is going to be going to Eckler. So what you hope for is, as a guy who has Robinson, what you're hoping for is a lot of that workload increases from him on first and second down, and that rushing number increases.
Well, it's not like he had a ton of volume last year, and that's what kind of worries me too, is that they didn't have much competition, and Eckler is a much better back than Antonio Gibson or Chris Rodriguez are, in my opinion, even at 30, 31, however old Eckler is. And he still only had the 32 most rush attempts. And his average wasn't terrible. It was 4.1, but that ranked 33. And he only had 5 touchdowns. So there wasn't a whole lot of production when he didn't have real competition. And now I worry that he's going to regress on his touchdown opportunities, not necessarily his touchdowns because he didn't score many to begin with.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's necessarily going to see an uptick in value from a production standpoint, just with the increased competition.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that concludes the third out of our 4 NFC divisions. Interesting list. We started out really strong, and then we had some disagreements towards the end. So, fun stuff. Anything you guys want to add to close it out?
I got Austin Eckler in our league. It sounds like you guys are really interested in him, so feel free to hit me up with some trade offers.
No, thank you.
I had no idea the market was there.
All right, guys, that'll do it for us. Thanks for watching. Follow us on socials at Draft Your Legacy, and then subscribe to our email updates. Haven't really sent one out in a while, but to where we can tell you things like keeper contracts and legacy scoring and all the things that we're doing on the platform. We'll definitely keep you guys updated with that as the development continues. But thanks again for watching, and we will see you next time to discuss the NFC West. Good night.
Much love.
Build your legacy.